Catwoman has come a long way since she was first introduced in the comics, making her initial appearance in Batman issue number 1. Since then, we've seen her go from villain to anti-hero to full-on hero, and play just about every role in between. She is known for being a skilled sneak, thief, and fighter, even beating the accomplished Talia Al Ghul in combat at one point. And she is also known for being a member of the Gotham City Sirens, and as one of Batman's main love interests, if not the main love interest for that character. Today though, we are not going to be focusing on Catwoman's roles or accomplishments. Instead, we'll be looking at all the ways she was wronged and mistreated as we count down the top 10 worst things that have happened to Catwoman. Welcome back, Nerd Squad. I'm your host Amanda McKnight, and I'm so excited to be talking about Catwoman with you all and all the injustices she has suffered over her long history. So without further ado, let's get counting. Number 10. When DC made her Russian. One of the weirdest things to happen to Selina was when she was given a random Russian origin story that never really amounted to anything. Never really went anywhere. I mean, it is possible that it was going to somehow be reworked into her ties with the Falcons later on, but in Catwoman issue 0 from the 2011 series, they definitely said Russian, and yeah, that definitely never came back up ever again. This was an origin story that was started and then was kinda completely trashed when DC's Rebirth happened. In Rebirth, instead of Catwoman having a mysterious brother and an unknown Russian origin, she returns to her more familiar origins of having her sister Maggie. It's not the weirdest origin Selina's ever had, but it's definitely up there. Number 9. Death of her parents. This is one of the worst things that happened to Catwoman because it also basically set her up for a tragic childhood. Though in retrospect, it did lead Selina to where she is now. I wonder if she would change any of her past if she could. Changing some of the most painful parts actually might lead to a different future, but would likely make her past better and perhaps her present less tumultuous. I wonder if she would go for that. Selina's mother was established as taking her own life in the comics, which prompted her father to drink his life away. With both her parents gone, and I suppose no surviving family to speak of, since no one took her or her sister in, she and her sister Maggie were both put through a foster care system, though because of Selina's behavior, she ended up in an orphanage for young delinquents. Number 8. Betrayed by an old friend. Sylvia St. Clair was one of Catwoman's oldest friends, back from their days when they were just young street kids. Sylvia ended up standing up for Selina when she was younger, looking after her, kind of like how later Selina would look after Holly. In fact, Sylvia could have inspired that behavior in Selina later on. The two became friends and partners, but the truth was that Sylvia always hated Selina, ever since she had stepped in to take Selina's place in order to protect her. Sylvia always hated Selina and held a grudge against her since that very beginning. This was only made worse when Selina left Sylvia behind to get caught in a caper gone wrong. Sylvia resurfaced years later posing as Selina's old friend with no hard feelings, when in reality she was actually plotting to destroy Selina for everything she'd done. Everything that had gone wrong in Sylvia's life, which she blamed Selina for. Number 7. East End Community Center destroyed. Catwoman's area of Gotham, in terms of her having a neighborhood that she most looks after and thinks of as her home, would probably be the East End. One of my favorite neighborhoods in Toronto is actually our East End, so I feel like I'm kinda on the same wavelength as Selina, although I doubt Toronto's East End is as crime-filled as Gotham's. I feel like, yeah, Gotham's probably filled with crime everywhere really. Crime in every crevice. Catwoman became the anonymous donor for a community center that she built in the East End, and was happy to celebrate its grand opening alongside friends and her long-lost sister Maggie, who she had recently reconnected with. Unfortunately, her old friend Sylvia St. Clair, who also attended the grand opening, had more sinister motives, and working alongside Black Mask made sure the grand opening ended up on an explosive note, blowing the building up later that evening. Before we move on to the next point, I just want to say thank you so much for being here, and if you love us as much as we love you, be sure to show it by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 6. Zatanna manipulated her mind. One of the worst things from Catwoman's point of view was definitely when she learned that Zatanna had taken away her freedom of will. This was revealed to be something that had happened earlier on when Catwoman had basically stopped her criminal ways. Selina had always believed it was a decision that she had made, but then Zatanna revealed that she and some of the Justice League members had actually kidnapped Selina and influenced her to become good, with Zatanna wiping her memory of that ever happening afterward. Zatanna gave Catwoman her memories back, seemingly undoing the alignment reversal spell that she had cast years ago. Now Catwoman was left questioning who she was and what decisions in her life had actually been her own. Extreme identity crisis. This also led to Catwoman doing a bunch of bad stuff, so yeah. Number 5. Her best friend died. Holly Robinson is known for being one of Selina's BFFs in the comics. She's been portrayed a few different ways throughout the years, but one thing usually stays the same no matter her role. She's always a good friend to Catwoman. New Earth Holly was friends with Selina ever since they were kids, growing up together on the streets of Gotham. Holly was a young runaway who ended up running into Selina, who was 4 years older than her. Selina took Holly under her wing, adopting her as basically a younger sister, and taking it upon herself to look after Holly. Holly is also usually the one who takes over as Catwoman in the comics whenever Selina chooses to step down. New Earth Holly, however, also ended up losing her life when Selina entrusted her with a package, with a brooch. Holly chose to give it to her husband for safekeeping, which was ultimately a really bad move because she was double-crossed by him. Catwoman, knowing something was up, hurried to save Holly, but it was too late. There was an explosion that decimated Holly's home and killed Holly in the process. Holly died in Catwoman's arms, and it was really sad. Number 4. Black Mask tortured her sister. Not everyone may know that Catwoman has a sister, but you know who does know? Black Mask. And at one point, he used this information to torment Selina by tormenting Maggie, Selina's sister. In turn, to torment Maggie, he tortured her husband in front of her and then made her eat part of his corpse. Roman Sionis then attempted to torture Selina in Maggie's place, agreeing to let her go in exchange for Catwoman. But fortunately, Selina in reality had other plans for Black Mask and managed to avoid a slow and painful death. However, Maggie lost her sanity in this attack against Selina, and Catwoman would always carry the guilt of what had happened to her sister. Super sad. And then Maggie hated her forever, all because of that. Which, I mean, fair, that's a pretty traumatic experience. Number 3. Murder. On Earth 2, Selina Kyle and Bruce Wayne actually end up finally getting their happily ever after, or so it seems, initially. Selina makes amends for her criminal ways, claiming that she had actually only behaved so badly because she suffered from partial amnesia, which a brick to the head seemed to fix. Yeah, that's definitely the weirdest origin, I think, for Selina ever. Oh, I wasn't really a criminal, I just had amnesia. She renounced her criminal life and gave it up, falling in love with Batman, who reveals his secret identity to her. The two marry and have a daughter, Helena Wayne, the other version of Huntress that you might be familiar with. But it doesn't stay a happy ending forever. Unfortunately, Selina is pulled back into the criminal lifestyle when she is blackmailed by one of her former goons, Silky Cernak. During a fight, Catwoman was fatally shot in the chest and fell from the 4th story of a building to her death, leaving her loving husband Bruce and her daughter Helena surviving her. Number 2. Had her heart cut out. This is also just such a strange story, but here we go. While Catwoman may be able to take Talia Al Ghul on in a fight one-on-one, apparently she was no match for Batman villain Hush. Her fight with Hush ended with her being stabbed in the stomach and then rushed to a hospital where Hush had Catwoman's heart removed. He kept Selina on life support though, so she wasn't dead, and when Batman found out, he rushed to find Hush and recapture Selina's heart. He rushed to find Hush. That's a thing I said. This is one of those stories that is so insane, it could only take place in a comic book, especially when Mr. Freeze gets involved. Number 1. The 2004 Catwoman movie. One of the worst things to happen to Selina Kyle by far has got to be the early 2000s Catwoman film, which was extremely loosely based on the character from DC Comics. It's pretty unfortunate too, as with Halle Berry playing Catwoman, who admittedly is known for being a talented actress and was huge in the early 2000s, in the right hands this film actually could have been good. Could have maybe even been great. However, what went wrong here is the studio got way too involved with the changes. And the other problem is that Warner Brothers apparently wasn't really interested in making a great film when they did this Catwoman movie. The project had been worked and reworked for so long and just passed around to various writers so much that the studio was simply looking to recoup their loss at that point. They wanted something passable, not something great, and wow, does it ever show. Believe me, it really shows. Just Catwoman licking things. I'm like, why? Why is this happening? Remember when she was a fashion designer? Anyways. And that's not even all the awful things that have happened to Catwoman in her 80 years of history. I have even more horrendous Catwoman moments that we could revisit, if you're interested. Fortunately, with a lot of bad though, we've also seen a lot of great moments with Selina. Just like us, costume vigilantes and villains also have their ups and downs in their lives. But now it is time to move away from the gloom and doom of Selina's life and check in on some of your comments in one of our latest videos, Top 10 Newest Marvel Comic Villains. Kingdom Come Superman writes, I'm honestly just a fan of the more attention we are getting on Apocalypse in X-Men. Me too, and especially learning more and more about Apocalypse's past. It's so interesting. I love it. I also just like Apocalypse as a good guy. I think it's really cool. Just a Peaceful Man who's born in 1980s agrees, Norman Osborn with the Carnage symbiote was impressive 2 years ago. Dan Slott did a very good job on that indeed. I completely agree with you, and I definitely didn't see that coming either. It was just a cool little twist and a cool rework of two classic characters really. And that's all the time we have for comments today. This has been Top 10 Nerd, and I'm your host Amanda McKnight, reminding you as always to stay nerdy, YouTube.